WNTN Radio Boston, welcome back to Italy Echo. This is your host, Viviana Dragani, and today my guest is Danielle Spencer, author, protector of freedom, a privacy rights advocate, and U.S. federal government whistleblower. She's a senior leader with over 20 years of experience focused on business, finance, and acquisition management. Danielle is a change agent, transforming and improving business operations and processes. She has 2 master's degrees in business administration and information systems and a Bachelor of Science degree in medical and research technology. Welcome, Danielle.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. So today we are going to discuss your latest book, Digital Assassins. So first and foremost, I would like to discuss data theft that happens today daily, costing Americans millions of dollars each year, more than any other country. So what is your opinion?
Well, with the rise of the advancement of technology, one of our most valuable assets is data. And because we use technology for mostly everything, um, protecting our data is very key. And with me being a whistleblower and going through the experiences that I've had, I've seen how someone stealing your information that you've given and having an insider take that information and use it for purposes they're not supposed to, how that has caused harm in our economy. Um, if you've seen some of the advertisements talking about protecting people's identity, because someone will steal your identity and open up a credit card in your name or other things like that. So that's why data theft is very important, and people need to understand what it is and how it occurs and how to protect themselves.
Absolutely. And government weaponizations happens frequently without the general public knowing, while they silence those of us trying to bring attention to the topic. What do you think?
I think it happens more, especially to people who are not well known, more than what people understand and think. Like I said, I'm a government whistleblower, and I have seen how government resources can be, and I've experienced how it can be used against individuals and private citizens. A couple of the, or one of the experiences that I had that I cover in my book is how the agency that is responsible for collecting taxes for the United States, how it would use my information, going through my tax records, and doing things that, in my opinion, very unethical, trying to retaliate against me because I'm a whistleblower. So those are the type of things that can happen at the federal level, at the state level. I've seen individuals who are associated with me. Like one of the incidents that I also covered, they got a ticket for failing to stop, that they said failing to stop for a school bus. And at the same time that they were supposedly failing for a school to stop for a school bus, they were at a doctor's appointment. So we knew the ticket had been fabricated, but when we tried to research or to get them to investigate the matter, they just closed it out. And so those are the type of things that I cover in my book, and I want to bring to people's awareness that the federal and state government, that government period, they have a lot of power, they have a lot of resources, and that if you're not aware of it, they can be used against you by people who are upset with you for whatever reason. But we need to be aware and really advocate to have laws change and policies put in place that where the average citizen can be protected.
Thank you. So now let's discuss cyber terrorism, a phenomenon that is massively impacting US citizens.
Yes. I will say the technical term cyber terrorism has to do with people using technology or cyber technology to basically to cause terror in people. So one of the events that happened that most Americans are aware of is 9/11, where they didn't use necessarily technology to cause terror into U.S. citizens, but they used two airplanes. And it was at a global scale, and most people are aware of it. Well, those same type of techniques can be used against American citizens using cyber. So things like illegal surveillance, where we have most people have their devices with them all the time. Being able to surveil where you are and who you're talking to, being able to monitor your bank accounts, being able to monitor your credit reports, um, and not just yours, but your family. Being able to use what I would characterize as like man in the middle attacks, where they'll request a copy of your credit report, intercept that transmission, and then translate false information to another body. Um, Doing things like that where it causes people to be very afraid, very concerned, and especially with people with, if you have parents, especially if they're older, or with your children or other coworkers or family, it can cause them to be very fearful of what can happen to them, or what may happen next, causing them to somewhat kind of isolate you, where people may not want to be associated with you because they don't know what may or may not happen. So it's the same, I want to say, type of techniques that are used in like the mafia or mob or gangs, but instead of using their type of tactics where it's more of trying to like kill somebody, it's more we're going to use technology to come after you, to cause fear. And the goal to me is mostly to try to silence someone. You're speaking out about something that we don't want you to speak about, so we're going to try to use cyber terrorism to make you be quiet on this subject.
Very interesting. Thank you. So, whistleblowers are silenced by those in the government who are supposed to protect us. Could you please elaborate on this?
Yes, like I said, I am a whistleblower. So one of the things, or the things that I saw that I reported, were things that they're called federal acquisition regulations, those type of violations, or reporting that I believe was not accurate, that was being told to Congress or other oversight bodies. What is supposed to happen, the way the process is set up, someone makes an allegation, there should be investigation, and then depending on the outcome of the investigation, um, they'll determine what should happen next. In my case, that isn't what happened. I made the complaint and say these are the allegations, provided documentation as to why that supported my allegations, and instead of there being an investigation and me being protected because I was um, speaking on behalf of the government and having a concern that taxpayer resources were being appropriately used, I was retaliated against, to the point where if I looked for another job, my job opportunities were closed. And even now, um, doing things such as misusing the security adjudication process, looking for um, information about me that they could use, going after people that I've listed as resources or references on my adjudication, doing things to them, asking them, like some of the questions that people were asked were things like they were looking for illegitimate children. Did I have illegitimate children? Or was there anybody in my family that was bribable or who was having financial problems? So instead of protecting my privacy, protecting my right to petition the federal government when I had issues, they used the government resources, at least in my opinion, government resources were used to try to make me to be silent on the matter. And over the years, that retaliation has escalated to now they're doing things, at least in my opinion, where they're fabricating events. Um, we can't find anything on her, so what we're going to do, we're just going to fabricate events either on her or her family, and it's all with the goal of silencing me in the end. It's like, stop talking about what we're doing or what's happening. We just want you to be quiet about it.
Daniel, the constitutional right to privacy is being violated by those who have taken an oath to protect it. Why is that?
In my opinion, it's mostly the same goal to make people be quiet, to not tell what they have seen or what the truth is in the matter. Um, like I stated before, because I'm a federal government worker, one of the things that we have to do, we have to go through a security adjudication process. And what I think most people, if you've never worked for the federal government or even been like a contractor for the federal government, they don't understand how invasive that process is. You have to give a lot of information about yourself, from where you've lived probably for the last 20 years, to your height, your weight, your social security number, your date of birth, where you've gone on vacation. And not just about you, you have to give very detailed information about your family, if you have in-laws, if you have step relatives like a step brother or step uh, sister, your children, relatives, neighbors, co-workers, your supervisors. You have to give a lot of information about them. And what is supposed to happen, that data that you give, it's supposed to only be used for a specific purpose. But in my case, this agency that I had a complaint against, they petitioned the security adjudication office or agency to get my information, and they had no justifiable or business reason to have it. And they also went to another um, a third party nonprofit organization to verify information on my education. All of this is a violation of privacy because I never gave them that permission to do that. And the at least in my opinion, my interpretation of their response when I brought it up, okay, no, you're violating my privacy here. Why are you doing this? It's, well, until we've done something to cause you harm, there's really nothing you can do about it. We're the federal government, we can do basically kind of what we want. And that's like for me, very concerning, especially if you look, there are cases where the federal government has had lawsuits against other companies for doing that to other people. Like, you can't collect data that you're not supposed to. I think recently there was a case where Facebook, who's now Meta, where they got in trouble for collecting data without people's permission. So if private companies or even private citizens can't do that to other people, we're supposed to be a country of laws, and the rule of law applies to everyone, even the federal government. They should not be allowed to do the same thing to other people. They should have to abide by that too. And so that's another thing that my book that I'm trying to get people to understand, that in some cases, especially with people who are not well known and not famous, your constitutional rights can be violated. And unless you have a lot of money or can garner a lot of media attention, they can get away with it, and no one can be held accountable for it.
Thank you for your explanation. So you mentioned retaliation, a common tactic used against a whistleblower, their family and associates, to invoke fear. And this may include your employer, right?
Yes, yes, it can. So, as I stated earlier, like when you go through the security adjudication process, you have to give a list of references. And one of them, or some of them that you would give, is who was your last supervisor. Um, Someone who should not be looking at that information can find out who your current supervisor is, who you've worked for in the past, and use the same type of tactics that they're using against me. Either to get them to say something negative about you so that you lose your adjudication and therefore lose your job, or to make them fearful and scared so that they will no longer be a reference for you. So it's one of those, again, it's all one of the goals is to make you fearful, to stop talking about what you experienced or what you've seen. And the other part is to cause some type of financial hardship. So if I can cause you financial hardship, you won't have the means by which to either file lawsuits or, like I did, not after filing lawsuits, I wrote a book, things like that. It's all geared to trying to silence the person so that they could stop um, saying what has happened. And your coworkers, your references, your neighbors, and your supervisors, they're all part of that community that they can uh, retaliate against because they know because of the information that you've provided as part of your security process.
Thank you, Daniel. So, cyber attacks can be used to ruin our lives and destroy everything for which we have worked. Tell us more.
I was two of the incidents that I covered in the book deal with almost the financial sector. So one of the individuals that was listed in my security adjudication is a couple. One of the things that happened to them, they had applied for a home equity line of credit, gone through the approval process and everything, and got pre-approved. The only thing that they were waiting for to happen next was for them to have a title search to come back and say that the title of their home was clean. Somehow, that title search came back with these false liens, over $140,000 worth of false liens. I had to work with them where eventually we had to actually, I worked with them and I helped them with the process, had to sue the company to force them to correct the report. And that was kind of one of the retaliation techniques that was used against one of my references. Um, Another technique that was used was someone, they had a timeshare that was that they believed that they had deeded back over 30 years ago. All of a sudden, this debt comes up again. And for those of us who understand data management and things like that, that doesn't happen. Usually, when account is like 10 years or more older, they're archived, they put away because business is very concerned about data breaches. So they don't keep information that's that old available to other people. But they get a bill for these fees that they said have been accruing for over 30 years. And again, I'm working with this other, with these people to fight that. But those were certain things that that happened to them. I've had people where their retirement accounts, they're unable to access. All of a sudden, they're having these computer issues and computer problems. Other people having tax issues that are coming out of the blue. But these are the type of things using computer systems that have happened to people who were I've listed as references or within my security paperwork that are now or since I became a whistleblower that I believe are being used against them now.
And finally, what is the main message you would like the listening audience to know about your book, Digital Assassins?
What I would like people to know is that even though these are things have happened to me as a whistleblower, these are tactics and techniques that can be used against anyone. So, what I would like to do, or what I wanted to do with the book, is to educate people on these different tactics and techniques that can be used and get them to have the knowledge. And hopefully, I can get a group of us together where we can really advocate with both local, like county level, state level, and even federal level, where we can put some laws in place where we can protect our right to privacy, where technology cannot be used like it is now. Because right now, the laws do not protect us. And especially with things such as AI coming on, where people can impersonate you or use that technology to impersonate you, it's very important that we really get some regulations and some laws in place to protect us before, things, people who don't have your best interest at heart can use these things against you. And we've waited too late to kind of address the problem until too many of us have had a extremely bad or adverse experience.
Danielle Spencer, thank you so much for joining us today at WNTN Radio Boston.
Okay, thank you.
And if you liked this interview, you found it interesting, just support our show clicking on the subscribe button and hit the bell as well to hear more from us. Thank you. Grazie.